Today's message isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for every man who's given too much, loved too blindly, and paid the price for believing that devotion could change a woman's nature. I've watched brothers fall to that illusion. Strong men turned hollow because they mistook affection for power. They thought loyalty would be repaid. They thought patience would heal betrayal. But the truth is colder than comfort allows. Women will break you if you let them. Not because they're evil, but because power always tests weakness, and love without boundaries is weakness disguised as virtue. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. He wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel." In other words, people respond not to your heart, but to your control. The moment a woman senses that you can be swayed by emotion, she stops respecting you. And once respect dies, attraction soon follows. She may still smile, still stay, still whisper your name at night, but it's no longer desire that keeps her near. It's habit, pity, or convenience. That's why today's lesson isn't about hate. It's about balance through power. To love without losing yourself, you must become ruthless. Ruthlessness is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's the art of choosing reason over emotion, of knowing when to retreat, when to command, and when to let silence do the speaking. Because every man has two choices in love, to be tested or to be trained. The weak get tested until they collapse. The strong get trained until they can no longer be controlled. Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't written for kings alone. It was written for men like you who live in a world that rewards manipulation more than sincerity. He said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." He meant that people, including women, adapt their loyalty to convenience. What served them yesterday may betray you today. If you don't learn to adapt faster than their emotions shift, you'll always be a step behind, explaining while they're already planning their exit. So today, we begin your transformation. From the man who bends to the man who commands, the man whose silence carries authority, whose presence is felt even when absent. There are 8 shifts that turn your softness into strategy, your heart into armor, and your peace into power. Each will challenge your conditioning. Each will burn the illusions that made you easy to break. But if you stay till the end, you'll rise different. You'll see that ruthlessness isn't about becoming heartless. It's about becoming untouchable. And before we start, I want you to write this in the comments. I will not beg to be respected. Because the moment you stop begging for respect, the world starts giving it. The first shift toward becoming ruthless begins with killing the disease of approval. Because every man who's ever been broken by a woman started with good intentions. He wanted to protect, to prove, to please. He thought being the nice guy would make him irreplaceable. But nice guys don't get remembered, they get replaced. You see, in Machiavellian terms, kindness without strategy is self-destruction. A woman doesn't test your heart, she tests your limits. Every smile hides a question. Can I move him? And once she finds she can, she will. Not always out of malice, but because human nature craves dominance. The moment she realizes you fear losing her, she stops valuing you. Machiavelli warned that men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. In modern life, that patrimony is your power, your sense of control, your boundaries, your masculinity. When you hand it away for affection, you commit psychological suicide. You make her your ruler and yourself her subject. Look around. How many men bend their entire identity around the woman they love? They change how they speak, dress, think, even what dreams they pursue. They trade their instincts for compliance, and yet, instead of love, they receive indifference. Because what she once admired, the mystery, the edge, the independence, died the moment he started performing for her approval. Here's the truth, Machiavelli would whisper to you if he were alive today. He who seeks to be loved above all else ends up despised, not because women are cruel, but because nature punishes neediness. Respect is born from boundaries, not from begging. The man who cannot say no is a man destined to hear goodbye. Ruthlessness begins when you stop negotiating your worth, when you stop apologizing for masculine energy, ambition, or standards, when you stop explaining your silence and start enforcing it. Women are drawn to men who lead themselves, not those waiting to be led by emotion. So stop trying to prove you're different. Stop trying to fix her pain, decode her moods, or heal her trauma. That's not love. That's servitude disguised as virtue. Let her feel your absence when she crosses your limits. Let her wonder what happened when the warmth turns to steel. The men who command respect don't threaten to leave. They simply vanish when disrespected, because as Machiavelli said, the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Be both. Soft when it serves you, sharp when it saves you. The balance between compassion and calculation, that's where your power lives. Drop this in the comments. My kindness has a cutoff. Because until it does, she'll keep testing where your spine ends and your desperation begins. The second shift in your evolution is emotional distance, the quiet art of not reacting when others expect you to. Because if Machiavelli taught us anything, is that the man who controls his emotions controls everyone else's. Most men fail here. They confuse passion with power. They believe that expressing every feeling proves authenticity. But emotion ungoverned is emotion weaponized against you. When you over-explain, overreact, or over-confess, you hand a woman the map to your mind. She now knows what triggers you, what scares you, what keeps you loyal. And with that information, she can move you like a chess piece. Every sigh, every silence, every withdrawal becomes a tool of control, and you don't even see it happening. Machiavelli once wrote, "The one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." Emotional transparency is the invitation to that deception. The world, and especially relationships, rewards composure, not chaos. The man who can remain unreadable in moments of crisis instantly becomes the most powerful presence in the room. You must learn to observe without absorbing. When she's angry, listen but don't absorb her fire. When she withdraws, wait but don't chase. When she tests your patience, smile, not because you agree, but because you've already calculated the lesson behind her behavior. This is the Machiavellian mindset. Never react from emotion, always respond from position. Women instinctively respect men who make them uncertain. It's not mystery they crave, it's the challenge of decoding you. When you withhold your reactions, she begins to chase clarity. That's when power shifts, because she can no longer predict whether you'll comfort, confront, or walk away. And uncertainty breeds respect. The ruthless man doesn't repress emotion, he redirects it. His anger becomes fuel for discipline. His heartbreak becomes focus. His silence becomes command. That's what emotional distance truly is. Not coldness, but control. The world mistakes composure for detachment, but the wise know it's the highest form of intelligence. Machiavelli advised, "A wise man should never suffer his words to outrun his deeds." Your restraint will always say more than your reactions. Every moment you resist the urge to prove, defend, or plead, you're teaching people how to treat you. You're saying, "I am not here to be understood. I am here to be respected." So the next time you feel that burning urge to respond, don't. Let silence speak for you.
Let distance do the teaching. Because when you control your reactions, you dictate the narrative. You transform from participant to observer, from victim to strategist. Drop this in the comments. My silence is my power. Because when your emotions stop controlling you, they start protecting you. The third shift toward becoming ruthless is learning to stop explaining your value. Because the moment you argue for your worth, you've already surrendered it. The men who get broken the fastest are not the ones who lack value, they're the ones who keep trying to convince others of it. You see, Machiavelli warned that men are impressed more by what they see than by what they hear, meaning your presence, your boundaries, your quiet authority. These communicate more power than any speech ever could. Every time you explain yourself to someone who's already decided to misunderstand you, you teach them that your approval depends on theirs. That's how manipulation begins. Women and the world subconsciously test for conviction. When you justify your standards, you signal insecurity. When you explain your silence, you reveal guilt. But when you move with calm certainty, the entire room adjusts to your frequency. Your confidence becomes the law that governs others' behavior.
Never debate your value. Demonstrate it. Through distance, through action, through consistency. If she questions your effort, stop explaining and start withdrawing. If she disrespects your boundaries, don't argue. Disappear. Because your absence will always teach what your words cannot. Machiavelli understood this psychological law. He wrote, "A prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise." What he meant wasn't deceit, it was strategy. Don't let loyalty to your image trap you in endless justification. The world doesn't reward truth-tellers. It rewards those who know when to stay silent. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth is to walk away so quietly that they realize too late what they lost. Think about it. How many times have you over-explained your intentions to someone who didn't even care? You were speaking to preserve your reputation while they were watching to measure your weakness. Every emotional defense gives them data. Every apology gives them leverage. That's why Machiavellian men speak sparingly, because mystery protects what explanation destroys. In relationships, arguing for your worth is like negotiating with a thief. The more you talk, the more they take. The ruthless man knows that explanation is for equals, not for manipulators. You owe no essay for your silence, no justification for your withdrawal, no defense for your standards. When you stop explaining yourself, people start explaining you. They'll create theories, assumptions, and whispers. Let them. Confusion is free advertising for power. The less they understand you, the more they respect you. So stop trying to convince anyone that you're a good man. Let your discipline prove it. Stop trying to show that you're loyal. Let your absence prove it. Because the loudest man in the room is rarely the strongest. He's just the most desperate to be seen. Drop this in the comments. I don't explain. I execute. Because the moment you stop defending yourself, you start defining yourself. The fourth shift in becoming ruthless is learning to reward respect, not emotion. Because every man who has ever been broken by a woman made one fatal mistake. He confused emotional intensity with loyalty. He believed that tears meant sincerity, that passion meant permanence, that apology meant change. But Machiavelli would have laughed at that illusion. He knew that emotion is the easiest currency to counterfeit. Respect, on the other hand, is the only currency that holds value. Women, like all human beings, test where power lives. They will cry, withdraw, or provoke not always to hurt you, but to measure you, to see if you are ruled by principle or by impulse, and every time you react emotionally, you confirm their control. Every time you remain centered, you confirm yours. Machiavelli once said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." It means people shift their behavior according to their advantage. So don't reward apologies, reward consistency. Don't honor emotion, honor respect. The man who gives validation to feelings over actions trains the world to manipulate him through performance. Look closely. When a woman realizes that tears can buy her forgiveness, she'll cry every time she wants control. When she learns that silence makes you chase, she'll vanish every time she wants power. When she sees that anger makes you explain, she'll start arguments to drain you. That's not love, that's strategy. And you're losing because you refuse to play. The ruthless man doesn't reward emotion, he studies it. He watches patterns, he listens to tone, he measures effort. And when behavior doesn't match words, he responds not with speeches, but with distance. Distance is the punishment manipulators fear most because it takes away their audience. When a woman realizes her emotions no longer move you, she will either evolve or exit. Either outcome serves your peace. The only way to stay powerful in love is to make respect the entry fee. If she speaks with contempt, she loses access. If she disrespects your time, she loses your presence. If she plays with your trust, she loses your silence forever. Machiavelli believed that love without fear dissolves into chaos. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Fear here doesn't mean terror, it means consequence. A woman must know that disrespect carries a cost. Not in shouting, not in threats, but in vanishing without noise. The man who cannot enforce loss will forever be treated as disposable. So when she tests you, don't argue, don't teach, don't plead. Withdraw calmly. Let absence be the mirror that reflects her behavior. When you stop rewarding emotion and start rewarding respect, every dynamic in your life shifts. People will start measuring their words before they speak to you, because they'll know this man doesn't bend for drama, he bends for dignity. Drop this in the comments. Respect earns access, because once you make that your rule, no one will ever again mistake your kindness for weakness. The fifth shift in becoming ruthless is learning to build power in solitude, because every man who loses himself in relationships does so for one reason: he fears being alone. That fear makes him obedient. It makes him overgive, over-explain, and overstay. But Machiavelli would tell you this: the man who depends on others to stand will always fall the hardest. Solitude is where you stop being addicted to validation and start building inner authority. It's where you learn to live without the applause of others, especially the women who once fed your ego just enough to keep you compliant. Every man must go through that exile, that cold season where the phone goes silent, where love disappears, and where distraction no longer numbs you. Because that's the forge, that's where ruthlessness is born. Most men mistake loneliness for punishment, but in reality, it's a purification process. Solitude strips away everything artificial, the false friends, the emotional dependencies, the illusion that you need someone to complete you. In that quiet, you rediscover the most dangerous weapon in existence: self-sufficiency. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise ruler relies on his own arms," meaning, never depend on anyone else for the strength you can build within. Stop waiting for someone to motivate you, love you, or rescue you. The ruthless man is his own savior. His time alone becomes a laboratory where he builds habits, discipline, wealth, and mental resilience. He doesn't waste solitude chasing comfort. He uses it to become too powerful to ignore. Women sense this energy instinctively. The man who can walk alone radiates something they cannot manipulate: indifference. He's not cold, he's complete. He's not unavailable, he's selective. His solitude makes him mysterious because he no longer seeks connection to feel validated. That independence triggers both fear and attraction. Fear because they can't control him, attraction because they can't define him. In solitude, you sharpen what the world dulled in you.
You rebuild your focus, your masculine edge, your patience. You learn to enjoy silence, to think long-term, to observe without needing constant interaction. That's the foundation of Machiavellian control, the ability to operate with zero emotional dependency. When you master solitude, relationships stop being about survival. You no longer chase what completes you, you choose what complements you. And that's the shift that separates the powerful from the desperate. Machiavelli said, "Fortune favors the bold." But boldness doesn't mean noise. It means standing still while others panic. It means not reaching for comfort when discomfort builds your strength. Solitude is the training ground for dominance, because the man who can command himself needs no one's permission to rule his life. Drop this in the comments. My solitude builds empires. Because once you stop fearing being alone, no one can use loneliness to control you again. The sixth shift is perhaps the most difficult for men, raised to believe that love should be unconditional. It shouldn't. Not for you. Not anymore. Because unconditional access is how you get broken. Every time you make yourself too available, you turn your presence into background noise. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote, "Men esteem lightly what they obtain too easily." He wasn't talking about money or thrones. He was talking about power. Access is power. Every man carries a form of royalty within him. His time, his attention, his protection, his energy. These are the currencies that women instinctively crave. But here's the rule that separates kings from jesters. What is not earned will never be respected. When a woman doesn't have to earn your attention, she learns to treat it like air, always there, always free, always unnoticed. You must train yourself to treat access like a reward, not a default. Stop answering every text the moment it lands. Stop being emotionally available just because she's suddenly in the mood to connect. Stop letting people feel entitled to your energy. When you give your presence freely to those who haven't proven loyalty, you teach them that your time costs nothing, and nothing of value survives without cost.
Machiavelli warned that men are driven by two principal impulses, love and fear. In relationships, balance both. Let her feel your warmth when she honors your boundaries, and your distance when she tests them. The moment she realizes that losing you has consequences, she adjusts her behavior. And that's not manipulation, that's leadership. The ruthless man never punishes emotionally. He simply withdraws access. His calm silence becomes the mirror that forces reflection. When a woman can't reach you, she's forced to face herself. That's where respect is born, in the absence of your validation. The average man fears that if he pulls away, she'll leave. The powerful man knows that if she leaves, she was never truly his to begin with. A woman who values you will fight for proximity. A woman who doesn't will flee from accountability. Either outcome serves your clarity. Your access must be earned through consistency, through mutual effort, through peace. You are not a gift to be unwrapped at convenience. You are a privilege to be maintained through respect. Every time you reward loyalty with presence and punish manipulation with absence, you reset the balance of power in your life. And soon, people begin to move differently around you. They measure their words. They treat your time with care. They realize that your attention is no longer guaranteed. It's granted. That's the psychology of dominance Machiavelli described. To make your presence feel like a reward, not a routine. Drop this in the comments. My access must be earned. Because when people have to earn you, they never risk losing you carelessly again. At the end of it all, remember this. Machiavelli never preached cruelty. He preached control. He understood that love without power becomes slavery, and kindness without boundaries becomes an invitation for chaos. Women don't destroy strong men. They expose the weak ones pretending to be strong. And that's why you had to evolve. You had to burn through illusion to become untouchable. The ruthless version of you isn't bitter. He's disciplined. He doesn't chase love, he attracts respect. He doesn't argue, he enforces silence. He doesn't beg, he withdraws, because he's learned that peace without control is just delayed pain. You've walked through every shift. You've killed your need for approval, mastered distance, stopped explaining, rewarded respect, built power in solitude, and turned access into privilege. Now you stand where few men ever do, at the intersection of love and dominance, compassion and command. This is the balance Machiavelli wrote about. This is the essence of being feared and respected. So don't apologize for your transformation. The world needed your softness once. Now it needs your steel. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I am the man she cannot break. If this message spoke to you, hit the like button, share it with a brother who needs to wake up, and subscribe to the channel for more lessons that make you stronger, wiser, and impossible to manipulate. You're not cold, you're clear. And from this day forward, you rule yourself.